this is Munson from Munson Music, and I thought I'd do a lesson on songwriting basics. And one thing that you can do if you're interested in songwriting is kind of use chords that are all related in some way. And one way that the most chords are related is they're built out of something called a major scale. And what a major scale is something built out of half steps and whole steps. And what a half step is if you went the distance of one fret, that's called a half step. And one scale that's made up of half steps is something called chromatic scale, which is where you're kind of playing every single note, not leaving anybody out. So if we were going to go over that on that E string, we'd have kind of E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. Or if you're thinking flats, E, E flat, D, D flat, C, B, B flat, A flat, G, G flat, F, and then E. But a lot of times there's this thing called the major scale that's built out of half steps, but it's also built out of something called whole steps. And what a whole step is if you went the distance of 2 frets, like if you did the first finger to the third finger on a string, that would be something called a whole step. So kind of the distance of 2, or kind of skipping over a fret, if that's an easier way to think about a whole step. And then what a major scale is a pattern of 2 wholes and a half, and then 3 wholes and a half. So one way to do that on the E string, just to be able to see like how far notes are away from one another, like you'd have the open E, and then if you went 2nd fret, that would be an F sharp note, but that's a whole step from the open string, which is a little weird to see at first. And then from there we have another whole step going to a G sharp note, and then we go from G sharp to an A, doing a half step. So we got kind of whole step, half step, and then we do a whole step from A to B, a whole step from B to G or C sharp, and then a whole step from C sharp to D sharp, and then we'd be back to E. So that's something called a major scale, which is your do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And what I'm doing is I'm going open 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12 on the string as far as fret numbers go. So I'm playing E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, and E. But for some songwriting basics, like we could even start really, really simple with something called a G major scale. So if we did that pattern on the G string, because I'm prejudiced and I love the key of G, you do open G, and then we'd have 2nd fret would be an A note, 4th fret would be a B note, 5th fret would be a C note, 7th fret would be a D note, 9th fret would be an E note, and then 11th fret would be an F sharp note, and then we'd be back to a G note on the G string. So we got G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. We're kind of looking at that intervallically for a G major scale. Well, there are a lot of chords that are built out of that scale, which is where songwriting comes in, because if you use chords that are related by that scale, those notes of G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G, then those chords will sound really good together, and you could use that scale to solo over that chord progression. So there's some basic chords that always happen in the key of G major. And these are all notes that are built out of that major scale. And the first one is G major. And the way you play G major, first finger is going to go to the A string on the 2nd fret, 2nd finger is going to go low E on the 3rd fret, and the 3rd finger is going to go to the high E on the 3rd fret. And if you strum all those together, that's called the G major chord, and it sounds really, really happy. And so that's one chord that would go really, really well in the key of G, because we're playing G's, B's, and B's, which are all notes that are in the key of G. Well, then that's sometimes in the key of G too. That's called the 1 chord of the key. So we could use like a big Roman numeral to mean it's really, really happy. It's a lot of times that happens. And then the 2nd chord of the key, or the 2 chord in the key of G major, is A minor. The way you play A minor, first finger is going to go to the B string on the 1st fret. 2nd finger is going to go to the D string on the 2nd fret. 3rd finger is going to go to the G string on the 2nd fret. And if you strum all those together, that sounds an A minor chord, and it sounds really, really sad. And you're playing A's and C's and E notes across the guitar. And then from A minor, we're going to be going to a B minor chord. And the way you play B minor, a lot of times is a bar chord, but there are a couple of easy cheats we'll talk about in a minute. But normally you take your first finger and do them across the entire 2nd fret. 2nd finger is going to go to the B string on the 3rd fret. 3rd finger is going to go to the D string on the 4th fret, and the pinky is going to go to the G string on the 4th fret. And if you strum all those together, then that's kind of our 3 chord in the key of G, B minor, which is B's, D's, and F sharps is what you're playing with that chord. But a lot of times if you're starting out and you don't want to use the bar chords, you could use some really little B minors where you take the first finger and go high E on the first or second fret, second finger on the B on the third fret, and third finger on the G on the fourth fret. And if you strum just the top 3 strings, that sounds a B minor chord and sounds really sad. Or you could even play the top 4 strings if you wanted to, kind of get a different B minor. And another way you could do it is you could take the third finger and kind of move them to the D string 4th. So you'd have 1 on the high E second, 2 on the B string third, third finger on the D string 4, pinky on the G string 4, and then you can kind of get like kind of a smaller B minor that way. So that's our 3 chord in the key of G, playing B's and D's and F sharps. And then from there we can go to our 4 chords. So after B in the alphabet comes C. So on our 4 chord we've got first we're doing a C major, which is first finger on the B string 1st fret, second finger on the D string 2nd fret, and third finger on the A string on the 3rd fret. And if you kind of strum all those together, then that sounds a C major chord that sounds really, really happy. And then, so that's our 4 chord, playing C's and E's and G notes in the key of G major. So C major sounds really, really happy. And then from C major, we're going to be going to D major. And the way you play D major, first finger is going to go G on the 2nd fret, second finger is going to go high E on the 2nd fret, and third finger is going to go to the B string on the 3rd fret. And if you strum just the D, G, B, and E, kind of the skinny 4 strings, that'll get you a clear sound out of that. And that's our 5 chords, playing D's and F sharps and A's, called D major. It sounds really, really happy. And then for our 6th chord after D in the alphabet comes E. So now we're going to be playing E's and G's and B's. And the way we play E minor is we're going to take first finger on the A string on the 2nd fret. Second finger is going to go to the D string on the 2nd fret. And if you strum all those together, that sounds like E minor. It sounds really, really sad. Might make you cry. And then from E minor, where we're playing E's and G's and B notes together, we're going to be playing in F sharp diminished, which a lot of you will probably know as a shape called D7. But the way you play F sharp diminished, first finger is going to go on the B string on the 1st fret, second finger is going to go to the G string on the 2nd fret, and third finger is going to go to the high E on the 3rd fret. And if you strum just the G and the B and the E, then that's something called F sharp diminished, which sounds really nasty. Diminished is just sound unresolved. So now we're playing F sharps and an A and a C note together. But a lot of times, instead of playing that, a lot of times in music you'll hear it where you get the D string added to that, and that actually makes it a D7 chord, which normally the function of this chord is to actually kind of help point to the key of G major. So that's our 7 chord. It's really nasty, playing the F sharp diminished, and a lot of times that gets used to point to G. And sometimes the D major can kind of use that same function. So there's a big thing called the 5-1 cadence at the very end of a lot of things where you would play in the key of G, a D chord and then a G chord to kind of end it. Or an F sharp diminished or a D7 chord to play a G. So that can be a really cool thing that you want to use in songwriting, is using that tool to kind of resolve things. But if we were going to play through all those chords that we just kind of played, we had the G major is the 1, A minor is the 2, B minor is the 3 chord, C major is the 4 chord, D major is the 5 chord, E minor is the 6 chord, F sharp diminished is the 7 chord, and then G major is our 1 chord. So when just doing downs on it like that would be one way that you could songwrite. You could even just play a big down and kind of try and think of a melody or some words, and maybe you want to have it happen. So you could do some kind of open-ended things. But a lot of times in music, we're using some things called strum patterns to add a rhythm to what we're doing. So just to go over some strum patterns you may want to think about in your songwriting, how you're feeling rhythm can be really interesting, like how you work progressions. Is you could, first of all, you could just think of just one, just where we would do downs, like just what we were just doing. Sometimes just doing downstrokes can kind of give you an idea from chord to chord. So that's kind of a meter of 1 if you wanted to think about it that way. Or you could have a lot of times things get put into different other meters. So a 2/4 meter, what we would call it a 2 quarter note meter or 2 beats on the floor meter, is where a lot of times you could do just a down, down, up to kind of feel that pull. Down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So kind of feel the meter in 2. If you wanted a 3/4 meter, like a waltz kind of feel, you could do a down, down, up, down, up. Down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And if you wanted a 4/4, one of my favorite patterns for feeling a 4/4 is down, down, up, down, up. And I love the symmetry of this one. But it'd be kind of down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, beyond that, you could actually come up with some really interesting meters by putting things like that together. So for instance, if we took if we wanted something in 5, we could do it as like a 3 plus a 2. So we could do, like, for instance, and this is just an example, and you can piece things together, make odd rhythms this way, which can be really interesting to play around with. So on the G, if we're going to do a 3 plus 2, you could do with that down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that could be an interesting thing to play around with, or you could do 6s by doing 3 plus 3. So like that down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down. Or you could do 7s by doing maybe a 3 plus 4, like where you'd have down, down, up, down, up, 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 down, down, up, down, up. So it can be really interesting to kind of play around with different meters. Even though the 4 is kind of the most common, and there are different types of progressions that we could do to kind of put chords together in a certain order that normally makes sense for the ear. And one way is something called a step progression, where you'd actually do exactly what we just talked about earlier, is take some part of just the G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G kind of alphabet and use our chords through it. So for instance, if we tried that with a 4/4, which is the most common strum pattern, we'd have G down, up, down, B minor, down, down, up, down, B minor, down, down, up, down, C, down, down, up, down, D, down, up, down, B minor, down, 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 F sharp, down, down, G, down, down, down. So that would kind of be going by seconds. We'd just be going straight up the alphabet, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. But something else you could do is you could kind of take that idea and then go backwards. And if you went backwards, technically it would almost be moving by what we would call sevenths. Like if you were on the G and you went G, A, B, C, D, E, F, that's 7 away if we're thinking of things always going up. So if you worked it backwards, it'd almost be like a 7th progression going from the G to the F sharp to the E to the D to the C to the B to the A to the G. So to try it that way too, you'd have the G down, up, down, F sharp diminished, down, up, down, minor, down, down, up, down, D, down, down, up, down, C, down, down, up, down, D minor, down, down, up, down, A minor, down, down, up, down, G, down, down, up, down. So that's something you may want for some part of your song, whether it be the intro or the verse or the chorus or the bridge or the second chorus with some strange variation, is you might want to try and use second progressions or progressions that work by steps, like kind of like half step, whole step, but it'll be that whole, half, whole, half pattern through the scale. Another way to organize the chords would be moving by thirds, where all these chords are actually kind of built in thirds. So if you're on a G chord, then if you count it up 3, G, A, B is the third of that chord. So one way that we can move through the pattern is we can do a G, and a third from G is a B, and a third from a B is a D, and a third from the D is actually the F sharp, and the third from the F sharp is A minor, and the third from the A is a C, and the third of a C is an E, so we do E minor, and a third of an E minor is a G. So that could be an interesting way to move through your song too, is doing a G down, up, down, B minor, down, down, up, down, D, down, down, up, down, F sharp diminished, down, down, B minor, down, down, up, C, down, down, B minor, down, down, G, down, down. And if we took that backwards, then we'd actually have a progression moving by 6, where we'd be counting up from G, A, B, C, D, E, up to 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if we tried it backwards, you'd have G down, up, down, E minor, down, 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 C, down, 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 A minor, down, down, F sharp diminished, down, down, D, down, down, B minor, down, down, G, down, down. So some part of a thirds progression progression you might want in your song too. And then another way to organize them would be by fourths. Well, if we're on the G and we counted up 4, G, A, B, C would be a 4. And then from C, the F sharp would be a 4. And then we have a B minor, and then an E minor, and then an A minor, and then a D, and then a G major. So that could be another way to kind of organize them, is moving by fourths. Where if we try that through the whole progression, we have the G down, up, down, C down, down, up, down, F sharp, down, up, down, B minor, down, up, down, E minor, down, up, down, A minor, down, up, down, D down, up, down, G down, up, down. So that would be going up fourths, and if we did that backwards, then we'd actually have a fifths progression. We'd have the G, and 5 of the G is a D, down, up, down, then A minor, down, up, down, E minor, down, up, down, E minor, down, up, down, F sharp diminished, down, down, C down, down, G down, down, which can be kind of cool. But the basics of songwriting would be basically just picking some chords and then kind of making that your song. And most songs are going to work off of 4 chord phrases. So for instance, if we took the first 4 chords in the step progression where we went G, A minor, B minor, C, that might be our intro perhaps, like for a song. So we'd have G down, up, down, B minor, down, up, down, B minor, down, up, down, C down, and maybe I go back to G down, up, down, B minor, down, up, down, B minor, down, up, down, C down, up, down, G down, up, down, B minor, down, up, down, B minor, down, up, down, C down, down. So I might take a little piece of the step progressions or the thirds progressions, fourths, fifth, sixth, or seventh progressions, and kind of make those part of my song. Something else that I may try is taking maybe one chord, for instance. This is just kind of an additive formula that can be kind of cool to come up with some different kinds of chord sounds around what we're doing. And one easy way to do that is to take a note of the chord and open it up to an open string. So for instance, on the G, if you lift it off the third finger, then you can kind of add an E note to it. And even with that strum pattern, you may even try going between those notes. So that can be kind of a cool thing too. Like you could take the A minor and try subtracting maybe the first finger, or opening up the third finger, or going back to it. So sometimes that can be kind of cool too, is to just vamp on one chord and kind of try additive things to that chord. There are a lot of notes in the key of G major, actually, like in root position, really close to the chords that we're playing. And just to go through those really quick, you'd have a G note on the low E on the third, open A, second fret on the A is a B note, third fret on the A is a C note, open D, and then second fret on the D is the E note, open G, and then we got an F sharp on the D string 4, and then we got open G, and then A on the B string, or G string second, and then open B, and then C on the B string first fret, D on the B string third fret, open E, and we got an F sharp on the high E first, or second fret for the F sharp, and then third fret for the G. And so those may be some notes that you want to try adding things to. Like you could take the E minor, for instance, and I'm kind of doing it with second finger, third finger, so I have a finger on either side to add and subtract things. So let me start out with E minor. Maybe I'll kind of add the low E second to that, which is that first F sharp note, or the third fret on the low E, or open it up to open A, or go to second fret on the A, which is part of the chord, or go to third fret on the A, or do the opens, or do the back to just that second fret, or I could add in the F sharp with maybe another note of the scale. With the strum pattern, you can come up with some really cool riffs too. So I'm kind of taking the C and then adding in the B string, C and the D notes to my that can be kind of an inspiring thing too. And actually, a lot of times you're going to end up on things that actually have other chord names. Like if you took the C major and lifted off the first finger, that's called something called C major 7. And if you add the pinky to it, like I was doing on the D string, that's actually something called C major 9. So you can end up inventing some things too. But the basic idea is just to string some chords together, string some strum patterns together, decide how your progression is going to be, and then play it over and over and over again until you've got an idea for a song, or it gives you a visual image that can be inspiring as an artist, and then let it flow. So that's the basics of how you could write a song really quick. So good luck!